Welcome back to the Home Turf, guys. Hopefully you're doing good and having a great day. I love you all, and I'm so glad you could join me. We're doing today's video a little bit different. I'm sitting on my bed for today's video, simply because I didn't want to capture any unnecessary noise coming from my air conditioning, and then also there's some stuff going outside. And I think it's a good change of scenery. So you guys let me know if you'd like to see, some more of this style of content. But before I get into today's video, which is about how the VA has ultimately screwed me over and failed me, I want to also give other veterans a chance to tell their story of their experience, because this happens with a lot more veterans than what you think it does. It's absolutely heartbreaking at how many veterans are treated the way I have been treated. And so if you're one of those veterans that's looking for an outlet, looking to tell your story, please reach out to me. My email is on my homepage, and you can contact me through there. You're more than welcome to. Either that, or you can reach out to me on Instagram or X. Same handle as my YouTube. So please reach out to me, and I would love to give you an opportunity to tell your story. Do not feel discouraged. Don't feel embarrassed, and don't feel afraid. Okay, because we're all here for each other, and something needs to change. So, that being said, again, please just reach out. We all need to stand together. We're all brothers and sisters in arms. That doesn't change. Even after we leave the service, that doesn't change. So I'm here for you, right? That being said, let's go ahead and get back into the video. My story. So to kind of give you a full understanding of how fucked up this is, I have to also talk about the stigma when it comes to mental health in the military, right? So backing it up, there's a huge stigma against seeking mental help while you're in. It's seen as a sign of weakness, right? A sign of giving up, taking a knee. They tell you all the time that it's okay to take a knee, but as soon as you do, they shame you for it. I think that's an incredible disservice to people who need help, because while I was in, I was definitely experiencing symptoms of PTSD, but I never went because of that stigma. Matter of fact, there was a time when I had went over 24 hours without sleep. My brain could not shut off. And so I reached out to my leadership, and I had said, hey, I didn't sleep, and I do not feel comfortable in being able to perform my duties on post, right? Because I was a sentry. So I was a security forces member. So a lot of the times we were posted up at the gate. We were the first person that people saw and the last people that people saw going out of the base. And so we were armed, and I did not feel comfortable with performing my duties there. And they said, well, you'll be all right. You have people there to keep you up. And at this time, we were working 12 to 14-hour shifts. So by the end of it, I had to stay up 32 hours and then drive home lucid. You know, they don't care. That's how much they don't care about you. And so it's the same thing when it comes to mental health. I had seen this happen time and time again. One of my buddies who wanted to seek mental health after he got back from his deployment was told literally to fuck off. Obviously, they didn't tell him, that right off the bat. they didn't specifically tell him to fuck off, but they wouldn't help him. And so knowing that, considering going to mental health myself, I decided not to, because of this shit. I would much rather confide in my friends who actually did care about me versus going to someone who didn't. And so I never reported any kind of complaints or anything like that. Um, my service, I had a terrible career, a terrible career. Um, and it is very common for security forces members to have bad careers. It is. Um, I mean, obviously, I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't perfect, you know. I was a socially awkward kid, away from home. I didn't really understand how to make friends. I didn't. I didn't know a lot, you know. Um, but just the way. Anyways, I've already talked about leadership and how they don't care, but um, there are so many more examples that I just, it would be too long of a video if I got into it all. Um, but specifically, I had put in a claim for PTSD. This was back in November. Um, and um, there was an incident that I had mainly focused on, but there was a cultivation of a lot of different events that had given me these symptoms. But the biggest one would be the one in Korea. So that was actually in the beginning of my career. Um, when I was in Korea, I had um, I went to a base uh, where it was mandatory for quarterly exercises. And a lot of the times as security forces members, you were tasked to man a DFP, a defensive fighting position. And so, one day during one of these exercises, I believe it was during the summertime, monsoon season. And I know for sure it was during monsoon season. Um, I was posted on a DFP that was not far from the fence line, and there was another DFP, probably about 100 foot or so to the right of us, uh, that had saw um, Koreans outside of the fence line, and we knew that Op 4 was running, but the Op 4 was not. They typically didn't wear anything Korean wise. Um, you knew that they weren't Korean. And so for someone to go on the net, the guys next to me in the DFP over, going over the net and saying that the net being the intercom, or I'm sorry, the radio transmissions, right? Um, saying that they had saw Koreans was extremely weird. And so my heart started racing because I understood something was about to happen. And then it wasn't too much longer after that that I started hearing fire coming from that DFP next to me. Immediately, I got up and I grabbed my M4, which was the standard issue rifle, the M4A1s. Um, and I look out the DFP and I can kind of see what's going on. I see flashes from the muzzle coming from the DFP next over. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I don't have a weapon that is actually working because the weapons that we were posted with were adapted to blanks. So we didn't have any live ammunition should an actual attack hit. And so I had already accepted that I was going to die at that point because of what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And so, but you best believe I was fucking scared out of my mind. Very, very hyper alert though. And also ready to do what I had to do. It is good though that these Koreans outside the fence line turned out to be Korean hunters, and had, to my knowledge, had only, taken maybe one or two shots at us, um, simply because of fear. Because I mean, the guys at the DFP didn't know what was going on, so they thought they were in play, and they pointed their weapons at them, right? And so there was a standoff there with rounds being exchanged, to eventually the Koreans fleeing, right? But they turned out to be Korean hunters, um, South Korean hunters, just happened to be in the area. Um, Obviously, we didn't know that at the time, but we were all grateful that it turned out to be there, or it turned out to be that, and there wasn't anything that really came too much of it. Um, I didn't seek any mental help, but I was never really given an opportunity to. You know, um, Again, with the stigma, and as someone who wasn't really accepted by my flight, I was kind of the oddball of the flight, being socially awkward. Um, I just kind of sucked it up and moved on. Um, I vented, but that was just to other people. Other people I considered close to me, um, and that's the only thing I really did. Um, and there were a few more incidences. One more in Korea where I was sexually harassed, because prostitution is legal over there. No, I did not partake in prostitution. But there were some prostitutes that got handsy with me, and I had to defend myself, because there was a crowd of them that was trying to rush me into an alleyway, and I said fuck that, and I defended myself, um, and I walked off, um, and so that stuck with me. I still remember that day vividly. I was drunk, but I still remember that day vividly. And then and there was also another well, not in Korea. There was an incident, where um, I had deployed, and we deployed to Sigonella. It was a naval base, in Sicily, Italy. And you would think, well, that's not a real deployment. Well, it's not. Well, I mean, it is considered an actual deployment, but it was more of a TDY, a temporary duty station, right? It was more of a vacation, right? But um, we would protect we would protect, drones, and drone pilots out there, and so, um, when when we did, I remember, the drone pilots, sharing footage with us of their kills, and that shit haunts me till this day. Seeing that. Um, Now, was that something voluntary? I mean, yes. Because the drone pilots were like, "Hey, you want to see some footage? Sure. What else do you got going on, right?" So, um, but that's something that haunts me till this day. Um, just seeing, how easily a life can be taken by the technology that we use today is, uh, it's crazy. It really is. But then, there is there's also a couple of more, and or a couple more, incidences. Um, my last year in was perhaps, one of the darkest times of my life, and that's because of how I was treated the last year that I was in. Um, my leadership didn't care about me at all. I remember that my ex-wife, who was in the same career field, actually, had attended a women's group, right, for the career field, specifically for women. Um, and well, as a man and how men are treated today, it's something that I was complaining about. And she had mentioned to me about starting my own. And I said, okay, well, that's not a bad idea. Let me go ahead and do that. Um, so I get some names together about who would be interested in joining this group, and then I go to my leadership. I go to my first sergeant, and my first sergeant tells me that that's not a good idea. My first sergeant tells me that it would be sexist to exclude women. Yet women can have their own program excluding men, and so I knew right then and there that this Air Force was not worthy of me. Um, but at the same time, that also made me feel fucking worthless. That I was so disregarded of my issues. Um, that really depressed me for a while. And then there was also how I was treated as a vaccine refusal, um, being put out in the cold and shoveling ice off the sidewalks with shitty shovels, in negative 30-degree weather. And then there's also um, there is also my life was falling apart as well. My last year in, my marriage was falling apart, um, and you know um, my leadership was treating me so poorly. Um, I remember I had showed up late to arm up and for post. I believe it was about an hour or so late. That's something that's never happened, um, or not so much. Since I began my career. You know, um, and my leadership pulls me in, and I break down right in front of them. I fucking lose it. That same leadership pulls me off to the side at the end of the day, and they tell me that they understand everything that's going on, but because I was late, I had to show up early the next day, um, about an hour early. But it wasn't so that they could watch me. It was so that I could be posted by myself with loaded firearms in a secluded post on the flight line. And so if I wanted to end my life there, I would have had the perfect opportunity to. And I've had some dark thoughts. I really have. I really have had some dark thoughts. Um, but I didn't. I've always had a fighting spirit to keep going on, to keep going on no matter what. Because I knew in the back of my mind that there would be someone that had suffered, that would be suffering, should I have done the inevitable. So that's always kind of kept me going. Um, I sought out mental health when I was in. Again, not because of not through the military, but through private means. And um, that didn't turn out good at all. I wasn't helped. Nothing they did really helped me. It was expensive, and I couldn't commit to it anymore, so I didn't. Um, I didn't realize what all I was dealing with until sometime after I was out, right? Because I didn't know all the symptoms of PTSD. I hardly knew any symptoms of PTSD, right? So I was wondering, why is it that I had days where I was absolutely fucking angry at the smallest shit that happened? Why is it that anything that happened, I would be literally shaking? Why is it that I was always jumpy? Why is it that I hate fireworks? Why is it that um, I'm always looking over my shoulder, no matter what, always putting my back to the wall, always looking for the closest exits? Why is it that I'm always looking to find the best cover to use in case of the worst kind of situations? You know, why is it that I have days where I feel worthless, where it's hard to get out of bed in the morning? Um, and so these things came together piece by piece. And I was talking with a veteran's wife one day, and they were discussing all of the symptoms and they were breaking things down to me. And I was like, that makes sense. Maybe I should say something. Maybe I should finally do myself a service and say something. And when it came to a regular checkup with my local CBOC, my local VA clinic, I decided to say something. And I got diagnosed with PTSD right there. I did. And so I decided to put in a claim for it. Again, and this will bring us back to the November claim. I filed a claim for PTSD back in November. Um, and uh, Again, I had already been diagnosed, right? I had already put claims in, and so I knew that a diagnosis that already happened is going to be more in my favor. However, I did not know the road that I was traveling on was full of potholes. And so, what, 6, 7 months later, the VA tells me that uh, I need this form, that form, and they don't tell you exactly what you need on the VA site. I had to call them to get the correct forms that I needed. Um, they tell you that the forms are on there when they give you the updates, but they're not. I looked countless times and I could not find anything. Even the forms that they do give you, um, they're so difficult to actually download that you just kind of give up, and that's what they want you to do. But anyways, I filled out those forms. What they required from me was a statement from me about the specific incident that caused my PTSD, and they also asked for a buddy statement. I gave them twice more than that. I gave them the incident that I gave, my statement. I gave them a buddy statement. I also gave them a letter from my school because at the time I had dropped out of school because I had panic attacks, anxiety attacks. My mental health was continuously getting worse. And so I wanted to focus on mental health. I was currently going through EMDR, which to that actual point, my doctor was telling me that I probably had to switch to something else because my PTSD levels and my depression levels were continuing to go up. And so, um, um, and it wasn't just school I dropped out of. I had to leave my job. I had to leave my job because I couldn't function. I really couldn't function. Um, and so, um, I get a letter from the school about my dropping out because of mental health. I also get a letter from my doctor stating that I'm currently going through EMDR. Um, and so there is so much evidence to show them that this happened while I was in and how much it's affecting me now. And then they also tell me that I need another form, but they don't list that form, of course not. And then I had to call them to get the form. And so they send me the form, I fill it out, and I submit it. And they did work pretty quickly after that to get me a CMP exam scheduled. And so the day comes when the CMP exam goes, or the CMP exam, happens, and I don't hold anything back. I don't. I told them exactly what I told you guys, some minutes prior, where I told him my whole story. I said, look, man, it's not just this one incident that had occurred that had given me all this PTSD. It's one, back in Korea that I was telling you about, with the DFP, that overall had really given me PTSD. But it was a cultivation of a lot of different things that happened while I was in that gave me everything I have now. And he said, I made it very clear, that this happened while I was in. I also was very clear that, I suffer socially, I suffer professionally, I suffer, most areas of my life are affected by this. I made it very clear that I had felt isolated because people treat you as though you're a monster when it comes to PTSD. I made it very, very clear that I could not, I can't land a job, I can't hold a job, because of this mental condition. And he asked me a few questions. Do you ever feel happy? No. Is it, is it, how hard is it for you to get out of bed in the morning? It's very hard to get out of bed in the morning. Do you feel productive? No, I don't. And so, just questions like that. And, I just, I was very honest. I was very honest. And he looked at me trying to recommend medication. And he looked at me, and he said, not only do you have PTSD, but you also have depression and anxiety. I said, well, that's something I already knew. And so I thought that, I was at least going to get validated with the claim. And then I saw that the claim was moving pretty quickly after that, and I thought that was a little weird. And then I get my letter stating that I was denied. I was denied PTSD, despite not being diagnosed once, but twice. Despite having a buddy statement and my own personal statement saying that this happened while I was in, and someone actually vindicating me, right? Validating my claim as well. But the reason they denied me is because I didn't have any complaints or sought out mental health while I was in. That's why they denied me. Yeah. Just over 8 months later, they deny me. All of the evidence is there. A world full of evidence is fucking there, but you deny me because I didn't have any complaints while I was in. Go fuck yourself. I'm extremely pissed off. This is how most veterans are treated when they get out. Buddy of mine, he had to fight 40 years to get validated for PTSD. And so this is why I decided to drink yesterday. Yes, I decided to drink. I did. I got drunk. That was the first time I drank to get drunk in a long time, actually. The last time I drank to get drunk was um, my last year in. This was when my life was falling apart. So I felt extremely defeated yesterday. Extremely defeated. And this is how most veterans are treated. And unfortunately, the 22 happens because of this very situation. This is an absolute disservice. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail to get what I deserve. Because I deserve to at least be validated. I don't deserve to be denied at all. This is an absolute travesty. For veterans, for people to want to serve, which is an honorable, noble intention, to serve their nation, but then to come back and treat it this way. This is exactly why I tell people it's not worth it. I wouldn't serve at all. Though I appreciate those who are currently serving and those who are, um, you know, joining, going in. I appreciate the fuck out of you guys. I thank you so much for your service. I really do. But goddamn, do I feel for you guys when you come back out, because this is how we're treated when we do. Even while we're in, we're told to fuck off when it comes to mental health. And especially when we come back home, we're still told to fuck off when we seek mental health. So I had to put my 2 weeks notice in the last job that I had because of the mask mandate. In Korea, we wore the gas masks, and they were very suffocating. Um, and that triggers an intense sense of anxiety for me. And it brings me back to Korea, and that's something that I don't want to relive, you know. And so I told my boss, I was like, I can't do this. I was working in healthcare, you know, I was a receptionist at a nursing home. But they said, well, okay, we'll take you off the schedule. Okay, until you get a letter. All right. Well, I go to my local clinic to get a letter, and that letter says that I should be excused from the mask mandate unless it's for healthcare reasons, which doesn't help me at all. And so I just had to put my 2 weeks notice in. Now, my boss was extremely understanding. I really appreciate my boss for that. But this is how we're treated. This is exactly how we're treated. As soon as we become inconvenient, we're tossed away. Because if you think that most people don't come out with problems when they leave the military, you'd be extremely mistaken. Extremely. And unfortunately, it's such a colossal fight to get validated, at least, that most give up. Well, I've never been the one to give up. There have been a lot of times where I could have put a muzzle in my mouth, but I decided to not do that, because there are. Well, I mean, for one, there's a dog right here. She decided to come and lay down next to me. That would suffer if I was gone, and there would be other people that would suffer with me being gone. You guys keep me going, and so can't give up. I can't give up. I gotta keep going. You know, there are people out there that need me. Um, and so, but man, it does give you some dark thoughts. It does. It really does. But this is how you're treated. So just expect that. Expect that. Expect all of the resources. Expect all of the resources that veterans are supposed to be receiving, but yet are given to fucking invaders who have no honor, no sense of sacrifice, duty. No, they get world class treatment, and we get fucking nothing. We get a tent. I'm unemployable. My body is shot. I've tried. I've tried many different jobs. Lost every single one of them. And I'm at risk of losing my home. I'm getting behind on bills because my disability isn't enough to, provide a living for myself. But they don't care about that. They wouldn't care if I'm homeless. They wouldn't care if I was dead. So that is a lot of people's experience, a lot of veterans' experience. So, again, guys, if you want to share your experience, just please reach out to me. Please, 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 please do. I want to give you guys a voice because you deserve to be heard. You really do. So, again, we'll be live streaming the 14th. A buddy of mine is going down to get a ganglion block injection to help with his PTSD. And so we'll be doing a Q&A. And then we'll also be showing you the differences before and after. So join us for the live. I'd love to have you guys. If you happen to have any questions for me, save it for the live. I'll answer them on the live, okay? So that being said, guys, I had to sit down and talk with you guys about this, give you the whole rundown, whole story, and to tell you just, there are some wonderful people in the VA. There are. There absolutely are. I'm not going to say the entirety of the VA sucks. But unfortunately, most of the VA is not there to help you. They're not, unfortunately. Especially those at the top. They don't care. And so whatever claim you put in, whatever kind of validation that you seek for your disabilities, you really have to fight for. You really have to fight for. So, just please, 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 please consider every single avenue to make sure your claims go smoothly. That way you get what you deserve. By no means, don't ever think that you don't deserve, because you do. You do. You gave your time, you gave your body, you gave your mental state for this fucking country. So you deserve you deserve all of that validation. All of it. So I'll just leave that there though. I had to say something. I had to. I had to. So thank you all for watching. If this helps you, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Please help with the algorithm. I want to push this out to other veterans who need help. So please help me. Help me help veterans, guys. This needs more attention. This needs more exposure. Because this is absolute injustice. So, yeah. I want to keep fighting. I want to keep going on. There are some things that can be done. It's going to be a process, but you know, I'm going to get validated. I'm going to get validated. I deserve this. I deserve better treatment than this. And there are also other veterans that deserve better as well. So let us all band together and fight for this. So please help support me and other veterans, and so that we can change this. Something needs to change. So, that being said, guys, I want to go ahead and close this here. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to take care of yourselves, mind and body. Whatever you can do physically, go out and do it. Okay. And then also with the mind, please take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health, please. Please take care of your mental health. If you gotta talk to someone, my door is always open. Always open. So take advantage of it. Take advantage of my open door policy. It's always there. So that being said, guys, also take care of each other as well. We're here to lift each other up. We're here to give the right information, right? And we're here to bring people back to reality. But we're also here to lift everyone up. And it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter who you take home. It doesn't matter. Your race, religion, doesn't matter. What matters is you. And what goes on in here. That's what matters, your character. So all are welcome here. All of you are welcome here. So let's come together, guys. Let's lift each other up. Let's bring ourselves to the right information. Okay, and let's figure out this thing called life together. All right. That being said, guys, I wish you a very, very lovely day. Again, if you need me for anything, just reach out. All right. Till then, I'll talk to you guys soon.